hello, everybody, whoever is here joining us or making your way to join us. Welcome to the first Facebook Live ever that my channel ever does, actually. Uplift My Life Today. My name is Astuti Martosudirdjo, for you who don't know me, I am a subconscious mind reprogrammer based in Switzerland, based in Zurich. And as part of my mission to connect with people, to talk about how we can be much more fulfilled in our lives, I host conversations in my podcast. And today, for the first time, we're going to do a follow-up of a podcast that I did with Kelly Braendli, my beautiful guest here, the dating and relationship coach, also from Switzerland, or based in Switzerland. Kelly and I, a couple of weeks ago, I think, Kelly, we did a
Valentine's Day.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. It was released on Valentine's Day. Together with my beloved friends, Julie Grauel, we had this conversation about, we call it to become the one, to find the one after divorce. And this was Kelly's journey and going through her very long divorce process, how this impacted her life and how she came back from it with victory, finding actually the best man ever for your life, hopefully ever, not until now.
I'm very confident that.
There you go. I
always say my very last first date.
There you go. I love it. I just love Kelly's story. So for those of you who haven't listened to the recording, feel free to go to Uplift My Life Today YouTube channel where you can see our beautiful faces chatting. Or go to Uplift My Life Today podcast channel in Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, etc. And you'll find the episode with Kelly there. So Kelly, the reason why I asked you to do this with me is because not long after the episode was released, I get like questions. I get questions. And I said, ooh, let's have a discussion about this. So yeah, so this is all about what, going through the questions that I have and also to take on questions from people who are joining us today. How is that for you? Maybe you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, I'm Kelly Braendli. I'm a dating and relationship coach. I'm originally from Canada, but I've been living in Switzerland now for 21 or 22 years. 22 years now.
It doesn't feel like that long, does it?
It's crazy. It goes so fast. And yeah, my story that I shared on the podcast was basically after 20 years of marriage, going through separation and a very long, drawn out divorce process with court battles and custody. And I know a lot of people out there, I've had, from the podcast and from other social media platforms, people reaching out to me. There's a lot of people who've had similar experiences, like these really challenging divorce processes with, long custody battles and going through the different court levels and stuff. And so I wanted to just share my story, one, to sort of inspire and motivate people that there is life after divorce, especially those long ones, but also to explain, a bit about how I came to be a dating and relationship coach. And a lot of that was my own challenges and struggles with finding love again after separation and divorce. So.
I remember your story, Kelly, because we chatted throughout the journey. And I have a lot of admiration and respect for Kelly and the strength that she has going through this. And very happy to be able to host your story and also this conversation today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. No, it's been great. And we've done several podcasts over the years and different stages along that journey. And so it's been great to have your platform and your audience listen to my story as well. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's my honor. Good. So shall we start with the first question?
We can. And maybe just before that, for anyone else that has questions, just let them know that you're welcome to drop your questions into the comments on either my Facebook stream in my group, How to Date After Divorce, or in your Facebook page or group, right?
Absolutely.
We'll get those
Absolutely.
Super.
Okay, so this first question comes from Indonesia, actually, Kelly, a listener in Indonesia. So the question is, how can I detect my partner's silent dissatisfaction in our marriage before we actually hit the wall?
That's a good question. My first thought of that is it's rarely silent. I think there is, even when people don't say stuff, it is actually speaking loud and clear. But what I realized in my own relationship is we don't want to hear it or see it or accept it. And so I think, when relationships go through changes where you stop talking to each other is a loud sign that things are not going the way they should be or you want them to be. And so to take notice of that. And another thing that people do, and I remember this, is when someone repeats something over and over again, it's because they feel they haven't been heard. And so that can often be one of the signs, that things are getting off track. And so if you get annoyed by your partner sort of beating the same drum, then it's time to really listen to what they're saying, or even more important, what's behind what they're saying, right? Sometimes a complaint is just the superficial surface, but below that, there's a much deeper complaint of an unmet need. And a lot of the work that I do with people is helping them understand like our 6 basic human needs. And how those need to be met in a relationship. And so our needs are security or certainty, insecurity, or not insecurity, variety, sorry. We need love and connection. We need to be significant, to be needed. We need to grow, and we need to contribute. And in a relationship where one or more of those needs go unmet over a long period of time, that's where we start to get that disconnect. And so some people are really good at verbalizing their needs, and other people aren't. They go silent. Right? They pull
but it's
back.
a statement. The silence is a statement.
It is, absolutely. And so that's what I would encourage is, where are those moments of disconnect, and are you actually being open to recognize them and take notice of them?
Yeah, I think, when you're sharing this for me, what comes to mind is there are 2 parties, right? One is the one who's expressing the desire to be heard for having a needs that is not met, and the other one who's listening. So if one person, usually the one who's expressing it, realize I'm not being heard here, sometimes the voice become extremely loud, like literally louder, or completely being silent. What would be other ways to make your point forward or coming across differently so that it's being heard instead of louder? Because when it's louder, the other one tends to be put off.
You're right. What comes to mind in this situation is something that I talk about a lot, which is a discipline called the discipline of positive intent.
Okay.
And what this means is, in relationship, this comes from Tony Robbins' 10 Disciplines of Love. I do a lot of work with this. I have a whole podcast series on this. And the law of positive intent is really that in a relationship, when 2 people love each other, there's actually this intent behind to not hurt the other person, right? That's not what we're going out to do. We're actually intending to communicate something and get a need met, right? But when we get louder, the other person feels it as an attack potentially, but that's not the intent, right? And so I think when somebody's doing this is to really go into that and recognize what is the intent behind what they're trying to do. And then you can make it less personal, and you can actually help calm somebody down in that when you don't go into this back and forth ping pong of attack. I read, and I can't remember who wrote this, so I'm really afraid that I'll quote the wrong person, so I'm afraid of it. But he talks about this idea of the customer service window, and I love this for relationships. So if you say have a problem with your Apple computer, right? And you go to Apple and you say, this is not working. Can you help me fix it? Their response is, yes, let me help you. Let me, get you a new one, or we'll send it to repair. We'll do whatever. They don't come to you and say, You know what, on the way to work this morning, somebody cut me off and I'm really annoyed by that. And you know what, this guy that I work with like doesn't shower that often and that bothers me. And these are all my problems, right? Like they don't give that back.
Yeah.
And in relationships, we tend to do that.
Yeah.
When our partner comes with their unmet need, we want to tell them about all of our unmet needs or our issues.
Yeah.
And that's part of what creates this escalation.
Yeah.
And so when you keep positive intent in mind and you realize you're the customer service window when your partner comes to you, your job is to listen and your job is to help meet that need, solve that problem in the best way that you can in that moment. And if you've got a grievance to bring to them, you can do that at another time.
Yeah. You become the customer calling the customer service.
Exactly.
Kind of.
Absolutely.
Take turns.
Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful. I also think that sometimes in communication, when it's a build up over a long period of time, sometimes also you need to listen carefully, because sometimes what they're telling you is not necessarily the point of what they want to tell you. So just wait to give time to so what is the actual issue here, without attacking, because to have an understanding, like when the customer is getting upset, everything before getting to the point where that upset them, they were just vomiting out to the customer service, right? Like but the issue is not necessarily all these things leading to that.
Yeah.
statement.
And in relationships, we like to bring problems that we think are acceptable rather than ones that are unacceptable. Right. Or in our minds, unacceptable. And so we come up with justification and excuses of why we're feeling that way.
Yeah.
Right. But actually, we don't need to do that. It's okay the way we feel. And that's where you're saying there's a surface level and there's a deeper level.
Yes.
Right. So we think it's okay to say, I'm really angry. Like you didn't take the garbage out again. But actually, what's going on there is I feel when you don't take the garbage out that you don't care about me. And that's the real issue.
Yes, that's the real issue. Yes. I don't feel like you pay attention enough. Yeah, to me. Amazing. Yes, great. So the second question is actually related to this. It's basically, what can help me to catch myself being dissatisfied when life is so fast and so busy? Okay.
Again, we get caught up in distraction, right?
Yes.
And before I became a dating and relationship coach, I was in HR, right? We worked together.
We were in HR. Yeah. We were doing the same job.
Yeah, exactly. So, and one of the things that I realized is so many people would want to change jobs, right? Thinking that was the problem in their life. And actually they were having problems at home in their personal life, or they were long-term single and they really wanted a partner and they would blame it on work. And so we have, as people, a really great ability to transfer responsibility to different areas of our life.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I always encourage people to do is to actually look at all their life zones and to really sort of say, I'm feeling unhappy in my life, but let me look at the zones individually, right? Like, am I really unhappy in my job, or do I just generally feel unhappy and therefore I'm blaming it on work?
Yeah.
Or is it in my relationship? And to sort of first understand what's that landscape look like, and where, if you do it on a spider graph, right? Where is the balance? Like, is one half of my life, am I overcompensating there because the other half is making me really unhappy? And that's where I need to look, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think being aware of those things is really the first part. And then the second part is, what's your general tendency when things aren't going well? Are you somebody who goes into, being the workaholic? Do you avoid and pull back and create distance? Do you become really critical of your partner? And again, to watch those patterns.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I understand this. I do have personally, I do have some distinct reaction. And I know when I start doing these things, I know I'm unhappy. One is, I work more, certainly. And the second one is I start to get bothered with how much I'm making.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's because I don't usually think about that so much. But when I'm unhappy, I'm like, oh, am I being paid fairly? And that's when I know, okay, it's not about the money, it's that I'm unhappy with something. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's about, how do you measure success then?
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
on what areas are success am I looking at? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think oftentimes we do. We try and figure out the answer to why I'm unhappy without really being totally open to look at what's really there.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not so straightforward, right? Like, I think also it requires discipline to actually evaluate how you feel in relation to the zones that you were mentioning before. And I don't know what your experience has, how your work has shown you, Kelly. I mean, homeschooling and working from home and all this is, and I hear so many women saying like, I'm done cooking, like I'm done. I love my family, but I'm done cooking. Oh, I'm done eating my own food.
Yeah, we've been, I mean, gosh, the last 2 years have really put us in pressure cooker situations we didn't necessarily choose to be in, I tell you.
Yes. So is there some kind of micro habit that you would encourage people so they're not completely being swept by the busyness of the household and work? Because I think generally when we took on the position of we taking care of our family, the family comes first, and you just never get anything for yourself or even for you as a couple. And I think, well, this is also a topic of question. Let's just discuss about this. How can you stay connected? Amidst all this craziness.
Yeah, I mean, two things come to mind. One is, I mean, self-love, right? Giving time for yourself to think, to self-care, to have a bath, to go for a run or do whatever, especially when you're with your family and you're taking care of all these things, not just for women, for men as well, but having time for yourself to think, I think, is really, really key. Giving yourself self-love and making sure that you're okay, right? When you're not okay, everyone else will suffer from that. And so it's important to do that, and look after yourself. And then to stay connected, I am an absolute believer in date night. I think you never stop dating ever. So set a weekly date night or a bi-weekly date night, and make sure, you get someone to look after the kids. The two of you go out, and there's a rule of 3, right? 3 things you don't talk about on date night: the kids, the job, like the logistics of everything going on, right? And all the kind of household stuff that needs to be done, like getting the car to the maintenance or whatever like that. It's about connecting as people and getting back in touch with, feelings and emotions and being vulnerable and all those things. That's what keeps a couple connected over the long term.
Absolutely. And after the release of this podcast, I had a chat with a friend who had been married for many years, 15 years or something. And I think we were reflecting about the need to renew focus or renew direction somehow, because a lot happens in this period of time. Everybody grows in many different directions, people facing different crises individually or as a couple or as a family, and sometimes you forget why are we together actually to begin with, and are we still on the same page going forward? In your view, Kelly, how regular or how often should this be discussed? I also have another friend. It's really interesting. This couple, they don't have kids, but they do this dinner every year of their anniversary, and they had a discussion whether they should continue or not. Not necessarily that there's issue, but it's almost like they're making conscious choice to go on. Okay, let's revisit this next year. They've been together for 20 years now, and they're still going, but they do this every year. I thought that was really cool.
Well, I recommend in my program that everybody does an annual couples retreat. And
okay.
I guess this is coming from my corporate background in HR. I think it's like your annual strategy meeting, right? Like,
Yes.
in business, we do this every year. We sit down and we look at it and we say, okay, where are we going? And where are we going to focus? And where are we going to invest? And what projects are we taking on this year? And I think we should do that in our private lives, in our relationships, and say, okay, where are we today as a couple? What do we want to work on this year as a couple? What do we want to do? And to really take time out from the busy daily life to give this the energy it needs to really focus. And especially when you look at different phases, right? When you're a young couple before you have kids, you want to sit down and plan that out, right? When you have young kids and you're doing homeschooling and stuff, okay, how do we create time in our life that, one of us gets to go back to school and do something if that's what you want to do, right? And so I recommend doing that. And as part of that couples retreat, I also recommend everyone has like a life vision, a joint life vision. I know we're going to talk about compatibility after.
Yes.
And this is one of those things.
This is one of the questions.
Yeah. With a joint life vision, you need to make sure, check in on that and say, hey, are we still going in that direction? Is that still relevant for us? Or, before we had children, we wanted to live, this jet set lifestyle and or live like nomads. And all of a sudden we have kids that go to school. And we think, no, actually, that's not who we are now. We need to revisit that vision and recreate something new that suits who we've become.
Yeah. You're talking to a go-getter. So
I know that about you, Astuti.
Revision of goals. Goal is very, very important for clarity of where am I going? Why I'm doing this? This is very important. And I mean, I'm doing it for myself every year. It's just like, okay, what was the past year about? What was the theme actually? Sometimes you plan something, but it doesn't turn out the way you thought it was going to be. But then taking a moment to say, okay, what did 2021 turn out to be? And then take a breathing space for a few weeks off, and then deciding, okay, what do I feel right to be the next? I definitely can see how this is super important for not just business, but also relationship. Particularly, I think there's some cycles, right, there where you can go very far from each other in terms of growth, and it's just require. And I think also there's a relationship cycles, how relationship evolve with kids, without kids, them as people. So there's a lot to watch out for.
Yeah. One of the things, that I strongly believe in is that we never really know the other person, right? We struggle to know ourselves a lot of the time, to be honest, right? So how can we ever know, our partner in that deep sense? And so I have this saying, like when you think you've got to the end, just start again, because that's what we need to do. We need to constantly rediscover, because the partner that we had, what they thought 10 years ago probably is not relevant today.
Yeah.
So even though we ask them that question, what do you think about this? Their answer today is different. And so in relationships, you need to keep cycling back.
And
making sure that you're still learning, because, they've gone out into the world, they've experienced something, they've redefined their beliefs and their opinions. But did you ever ask them about that? Or did they ever share it with you?
Right.
Yeah. And
this
so
is
checking in. And I recommend a great book to everybody. I think one day I'm going to have to ask for royalties because I recommend it so much, but John Gottman's 8 Dates book.
I love that book. I read it. Yeah.
And
it's good.
I think, whether you're newly dating somebody or you've been in a relationship for 20 years, get a copy of that book, sit down and work through its 8 life value areas with questions, and talk to your partner and get to know them again.
Yeah.
Really important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think I've heard also people saying like, when one of the partners growing faster or towards different direction, there's statements like, I don't recognize who you are anymore. Where is the woman or the man I married 10 years ago? All these things. And it's really, I'm listening it with a heavy heart, because I'm one of those people who keep on growing. So I would never be in the same spot. Every year there's something. It's like, so I see what you're saying, Kelly, particularly because I mean, it's because of the work that we do, we are also being reflective on daily basis with the clients, right? So we never stay in the same spot consciously or unconsciously. And when I hear this is really like, wow, okay, there's some conversation to be had.
There is. And, Tony Robbins, I trained with him, so I have a lot of his quotes, but he always says, we're either growing or we're dying.
Right.
We're either growing as a couple or our relationship is dying, which means get on board with that. Ask those questions. Where are we growing? Where do we want to grow? Right. To make sure that we're aligned, because that statement, where's the person I married? Hopefully they're not the same person, but hopefully you've made that journey together. That's the goal, right?
Right.
To go together.
They shouldn't be the same person. And it's a really huge missed opportunity if the person remained the same, like when you married her or him many years ago. Exactly. Yeah. I was just speaking at the comment, and Julie was saying it's really difficult to keep the positive intent when you're triggered.
Yes.
Yes, Julie.
Yes. And we all get there. I think nobody's immune, and we have those sort of spots that get triggered. I think there's two important things. One is when you realized you're triggered, to be able to just verbalize and say time out. And to have an agreement within a couple to say, when that happens, that, we take an hour apart, we take 15 minutes apart, we do whatever, but that you have an agreement. So you know what timeout means. And it's not left like, I'm cutting off this conversation and it will never be brought up again. But it's like, I'm going to cool down, you're going to cool down, and we're going to come back and discuss it. And then in those moments when we are triggered, we tend to say things that we might not like.
We didn't mean,
we didn't
but
mean,
we can't take back.
Might regret it. And so the other key to that is when we get triggered is how we repair. Right.
Yeah.
And what that looks like. And taking ownership and responsibility is not always easy, but part of the repair process is recognizing when we've gone too far or we've been hurtful. We didn't have, the positive intent. We actually did want to hurt the person in that moment. But then upon reflection, we realized that it was just because we were hurting and we were trying to release that pain out into the world.
I think you said something very important with repairing what do you call the break, or what do you say, the repairing?
I don't know what I said.
Yeah, basically rebuilding the bridge.
Yes,
after you hurt the person.
Yeah.
I really like this, Kelly, because I've been also observing my sister. I've been observing how I behave towards my nephew and also my sister and my brother-in-law. And I realized something that didn't happen with us when we were a child. After we get scolded by our mother, we didn't have the bridge repairing afterwards. What we are trying to do now is, of course, there are moments when you just get, stop that, it's just, but then you come back to it. And I think this is a skill, isn't it? It's a relationship skill, but not only in connections to romance. I think with everybody you care about, you do want to make sure that after a blow up, we rebuild the bridge back somehow.
You do. Yeah. And with my partner, I don't know where this came up, but we've sort of got this statement where when we get into a conflict or an argument, we say, I love you, but I really don't like you right now.
Yes.
And that's sort of like, this is going too far. I need to have this break. But it's reconfirming, I do love you. It's not that I don't love you, but what's happening, I don't like the way I'm reacting. I don't like the way you're reacting. And just being clear about that. But then you've got that foundation to come back to. It's, to start that repair. And I think that's so important.
Yeah, definitely. So should I read you the next question?
Yes, please.
Since the divorce, I don't know if I can trust myself choosing the right person for me. What can I do now?
So common. It's probably out of the 5 things that people struggle with in finding a relationship after divorce. Trust is definitely one of those. either of the other person, but oftentimes of myself.
Yeah.
And what I have learned through my journey and learning is that part of that is we don't actually understand this concept of compatibility and what makes for a healthy relationship in a lot of cases. And so we feel like it's a bit of luck, right? We meet somebody, we have great feelings and chemistry, and then we kind of hope that it works out.
Yeah.
And what I learned from studying the science behind relationships, I worked with a lady, Dr. Terry Orbach out of the States, and she's done this study over 35 years, watching like 370 some odd couples. So she could prove this. And what we've realized over time there is, and I just lost my train of thought. That happens, doesn't it?
Compatibility,
exactly. Yeah, there we go. Thank you for getting
this
that.
happens.
Yeah. So what we realize is compatibility comes from certain core elements. So one is that we have shared core values, right? So we believe the same things basically in terms of we value religion, if that's important to us. We value this in health and wellness, family, what we do with money, all these kinds of core value areas is one really important part of compatibility. The second part is what I alluded to as this shared life vision. When you come to a relationship, each person has a vision of their life. And the question is, can we integrate those into a shared vision? Right? When one person has this dream of starting a family and living in the country, and the other person wants to, you know, be a nomad and live around the world and never own anything, they're kind of a bit difficult to combine.
Yeah.
Right. But when you both want that, you know, the big family and the country home and the dog and 2 cats, that's fantastic, right? Then you're both going to be working towards that. So the shared life vision is number 2. And then the third piece is ability and willingness to meet each other's 6 basic human needs. And when you understand who you are as a person, you know, your core values, compatibility comes around, can I be authentic in this relationship? Can I live who I am in this relationship? And once you understand what good looks like, it's so much easier to then ask the right questions and assess, am I the right person? And when you're with a person you know you're compatible with, when you go through the relationship and you hit a crisis, because every relationship does, right? And you get to the crisis phase, you actually can go, you know, when you're asking that question, do I stay with this person or don't I go? It's not, are we compatible? You know that already. This is part of the relationship. I need to get through this phase. Yeah. Right. But I know we're compatible. And then after compatibility comes connection and chemistry. And so that order. And so learning to trust yourself becomes who am I? Who am I after this divorce? What do I believe and value? First getting in touch with that. And then you're much better able to discern if somebody that you've met is compatible with you. Yeah. It's almost like, who am I to version 2.0, you know, after the divorce. It's like, right? Exactly. Like, and we forget. And if you've been in a relationship or a marriage where you felt like you lost yourself, right? Yeah. You compromised a lot of your core values for a long period of time. And you're like, I don't know who I am anymore. And that process is getting back in touch with that. Who are you at your essence? Yeah. Right. Yeah. What did you love to do? And I do work with childhood photos with clients, helping them get back in touch with their creative side and all those parts that they let go of because they wanted the relationship to work and there wasn't space in that relationship for that part of themselves. Yeah. And I also realized there's a lot, I mean, reflecting on how I was in my younger days, there's a lot of fear of being separated, and then you started to compromise much more, and I had been trained to understand other people's needs and to fulfill their needs first. So there is a journey of understanding this, number one. Number two, also not to project, because this is also another thing. Oh my God, this is because I've been on the other side of receiving the projection. So I don't want that
happening to anybody that I'm with, because it's hurtful. I know how hurtful it is, but I had to work on myself to learn to manage that, whatever turmoil or crisis within myself, that it doesn't spill over too often and too much to other people. So I think the version 2.0 is super critical, because also connected to life cycles. What was important in your 30s may not be as important in your 30s, or at all important in your 30s. And you probably have also achieved certain life goal that you have set in the past 10 years. Maybe now you don't want that anymore. And sometimes when you're in a relationship and there's no communication about it, in your mind, you're processing these things and not communicating to your partner is still thinking like we're still aiming for what we said 10 years ago. Exactly. And then there's the whole thing collapse somehow. But this is more of a discussion rather than fundamental gap, right?
I mean, it's both, I think.
It's both, okay.
In some relationships, and when I started my work, I was convinced that I wanted to help save every marriage.
Okay.
And then I realized that actually not every marriage can or should be saved.
Yeah.
And part of that is about realizing that where there is compatibility, right? Where you are compatible, and you understand that, then those relationships can be saved. But where you got in a relationship that was based purely on chemistry, and you didn't have the connection and the compatibility, it's really difficult to actually save those relationships, right? Because one or both of you are compromising so much on your core values. And so, and that's the part where those relationships can be saved, and with a discussion and working through it, you can come out. But on the other side, where there isn't compatibility, then the question is, are you being true to yourself? Do you have the loyalty and self-love to say, I keep doing this? And I do a lot of work with attachment styles about what we believe about ourselves and how that comes out in relationships, right? And the projection a lot of the time is, I don't feel I'm lovable, so therefore I make it that you don't love me, right? And in those kinds of relationships, it's about understanding, how were you in that relationship? How did that dynamic come to be? And then working through your own trauma, your own pain first before you get into a new relationship. Otherwise, you repeat the pattern. And that's what we talked about in the podcast. I did that, right? I repeated my patterns over till I realized, wait a second, like I'm the common denominator here.
Again and again and again.
So I think those are 2 points of differentiation to understand of, do you invest in saving that relationship, or do you invest in healing yourself to then create a completely new dynamic in a new relationship?
What would be some signals maybe, or symptoms, not symptoms, it sounds so bad, signals or feelings that can tell you that you're compatible with this person? So for me, but I don't know if this is a sign of compatibility, whenever I feel like I'm excited to share my deepest thoughts with somebody, I feel very safe to do that. And it's not easy. For me, it's not easy to be vulnerable. It's a sign that in my mind, he's compatible. Is that?
So I would define that, and I don't want to make it too boxy, but I would define that as connection.
Okay.
So the way I see connection is when you meet somebody where, there's this feeling like we understand each other. We speak the same language.
Yes.
We understand the nuances of what we're saying and what we're not saying. That to me is all about connection.
Okay.
And I believe connection is either there or it isn't.
Yeah.
Right. If you've ever met somebody where you think like, no matter what I say, they just interpret it wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's almost impossible to overcome that. It's just the way it is. They're
hearing something else.
You're speaking at different levels, or so the connection's not there, and connection is critical in a relationship. But for me, compatibility is a much more conscious understanding, right?
Okay.
And it's about, in the dating process, dating is about gathering information and learning about the person, right? It's not just this feeling. The feeling grows and we love that feeling. But the conscious part is really saying, you know, do we share, and I like to think of it as a map, right? Do we share the same map of the world? I've got a map of Zurich, and if I'm with somebody who's got a map of, say, Berlin, and we're trying to navigate around Zurich together, and every time I say go right, he says, no, you go left. My map says left, right?
Yeah.
We're constantly in conflict over which way we're going. But when we've both got a same map of the world, we're aligned, right? And that to me is what compatibility is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but this is so the connection, compatibility, and chemistry, this is important. So 3 parts are important in relationship. Compatibility without chemistry is not so nice, or what? How do you see
need
this?
all 3, but
all
they
3.
need to, they need to come in that order.
Okay.
So Hollywood has taught us chemistry is what we all want.
Number
we
1.
want the spark, right? We want to be swept off our feet. But I always say those kinds of relationships that are built on chemistry have an expiry date. Yeah. Eventually the chemistry will end, and you will look at this person and go, wait a second, I don't like this person. Right? If there's no compatibility. If we look at compatibility first and we share these values, we reinforce each other. We are able to grow together, right? We're able to create something as a couple. And that keeps the passion alive long term. It's not hormone driven anymore. Right. And so that's why I always say it's that order. It's compatibility, check. We've got connection, check. Okay, now is the chemistry developing, or has it developed? Yes, check. Now we've got the 3 components of a long-term, happy, healthy relationship. But Hollywood has taught us to put it upside down. And so that's where we get to the point where we say, wait a second, like, we want so different things. I don't know, because we made a decision based on this hormone and all this attachment that was coming up to keep us together. Yeah.
Oh, actually, it is a good opportunity to rebuild a new life if you follow up the divorce well.
It can be. It can be fantastic.
It can be.
And
yes.
Absolutely. Definitely. And, you know, especially if you've struggled, like you thought you lost yourself, I think after divorce, going through a process of letting go of your past, as I say, become the one, get clear on who you are, rediscover yourself, your passions, your joy, and then you're in an amazing place to find a partner who's also done the same, or you know, maybe they weren't married, but they're ready now to create the kind of relationship you want. And I think it can be fantastic.
Yeah, I am yet to hear from the people that I know who went through a divorce. I'm yet to meet people who didn't say I lost myself, or a part of myself in this marriage. And for a long time, of course, that become a food to myself. It's like, okay, why would people get married if they're going to lose themselves there?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but yeah, I understand. I mean, there of course there are compromises to be made, but I think there has to be a healthy level of compromise. In my mind, it shouldn't involve a betrayal towards yourself as you compromise with the other people. Where's the boundary, Kelly?
Yeah. So what I teach is I've created this model. I call it the 5+2 model, and it's your 5 core values plus your 2 deal breakers in a relationship. Okay. And when you're looking at compatibility, those 5 are the things that you need to have to live authentically in a relationship.
As yourself, yes.
And so it takes a process of getting below the superficial level to identify those. But once you know those 5, you also know that the other things are less important. And there you can be more willing,
flexible,
to compromise and be flexible. And I think when you don't know the difference, you think everything's really important. Right. And so you're trying to fight for every opinion or idea that you have, because you don't know, is this one more important than that one? And my clients who've gone through that process always say, like, this, everybody should do this, because then, you know, like, you know, I'm not going to compromise on this. I'm not going to stay in a relationship for 8 years wanting children and then leave the relationship because I realized that was so important to me.
Yeah.
Right. when you're
Yeah.
clear on that up front, then you can make a decision before you've invested years of your life and compromise on something that was really critical to you.
Yeah. I want to ask your opinion about something here, because I've had this discussion a lot with people about divorce, with the people who have been on a divorce. And one person that I really respect was saying to me, I think a lot of people think of divorce as a breakdown in something, but it isn't a breakdown. It is also, you can see it from the other side, it is a freeing act for something that has not been working on the fundamental level. So it is a stop of a certain structure, but it's also is a freeing. Everybody becomes, they have the opportunity to then deciding who they are now. If the foundation is not working, when there is, in her case, it was quite an abusive relationship. So for her, fundamentally, there's nothing to fight for apart from the children.
Yeah.
So how can I then co-parent with the husband when as good as well as I can? Because the relationship between her and her husband was completely unhealthy, toxic, basically. So, and then she was saying, yeah, from the way I see it, this isn't so much, yes, it is a breakdown of an existing structure, but in a way it's also a freeing act from my part to go back to myself again, and for my husband to find another partner that suits him, because it was painful for both of us. I triggered him, he triggered me, and this was going on for like over a decade, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I think, it can be in some ways a breakthrough. It was definitely for me. For most people that have these kinds of relationships, there's some kind of childhood trauma, things left over, beliefs we created in childhood that we've brought forward. And we need to have this sort of breakdown in order to break through and see what's there. And for me, this going through divorce gave me a massive gift of being able to realize all this sort of pain I'd been carrying with me for so many years, that I finally got to look at it. I had to look at it and deal with it and heal it and overcome it. And, I have this vision of relationships, whether it's, marriages, romantic relationships, or friendships, that it's like a train journey. And at every stop, we have some people get on and some people get off. But each person who rides on our train, however long that is, they give us gifts, they bring us lessons. We take something away, and at some point, they may need to get off and go their own way on a different path than the way that we're going. And that doesn't make it right or wrong.
Right.
It just makes it part of life's journey. And, I do believe in love. And of course, I love creating relationships, and I want them to be healthy, happy, long-term relationships. But that's the key. They need to be healthy relationships.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're not serving both people. And then I think it's better that, you go on different paths.
Yeah. Any questions coming from your group?
Not that I see on my Facebook. I don't know I don't even know if it actually allows comments on my Facebook post, but
we'll see.
We'll see, exactly. Maybe they'll come after.
I don't have any more questions on my side. Those are the main 4 ones that I thought was really good. So the compatibility was one of them. So you answered that. And thank you for clarifying the 3 C's: compatibility, connections, and chemistry.
Absolutely.
Very important.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much
We're
for
going to do it again.
having me back.
Yes. Actually, I have a question, which is, I don't know if, let's just throw it in here. Connected to 2.0, who I am 2.0, therefore the kind of marriage I want to be part of, the marriage 2.0. I guess a lot of, in our age, very likely we end up with people who have had other marriages or other serious long-term relationships. What did you learn about merging these 2 group or 2 families?
there's so many things. I think the biggest learning, just to sort of keep it, is that we have to let go of this idea of like the nuclear family. We can't recreate that in second marriage patchwork families.
When
right?
you say nuclear family, what does that mean?
Also, man and woman meet and they have their biological children, right? Like that kind of, and that's what I was going out. Like I wanted to recreate that, but you can't, right? You've got co-parents, you've got different sets of grandparents, I actually love the term like step families. Right.
Okay.
And the reason I like it, it's because it's this idea that it's step by step.
Right.
You got to grow together as a family. And when you've been in a family, a nuclear family with your own kids, you've got history, you've got experiences. And so you can't kind of just translate that to coming to a new family where, they've got their own biological child and now they're going to try and co-parent with your children. And so it's a step-by-step process. And that was for me a big learning. And that each step has its own challenges and its own difficulties, but also its own excitement, its own sort of like growth
discovery.
Phases. Yeah, exactly. So that was kind of one of the big learnings. And I'm still, we're together for 2 years in our step family. And of course, we're still learning lots, but it's a very rewarding process. But it's very different, right?
This is so interesting because, when you think about compatibility, the values, right? Like if both people really appreciate family, I could see, I'm very close with my family, I appreciate family. So you could see that all of a sudden your extended family, your step becomes huge.
Yeah,
it's exactly. Like, oh, there are multiple parties here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah.
And this was not necessarily immediately obvious until you're like, okay, there's different layers. Maybe this is another podcast for us to talk about.
Yes.
This is a different topic altogether, but this is becoming much more common for the people in my tribe anyways, and probably yours.
And I think this is also part of looking at the value system of finding somebody that also values that and is ready to take on that challenge with you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it can be a fantastic experience. And yes, I'm sure. Yeah. It would be also lovely to have some sharing of, people's experience who've gone through step families and explore that as well. So
yes, it deserves for the future. Yes, it deserves some space and time to discuss, certainly. Yeah, for sure. Well, Kelly, this is it.
This is wonderful.
This is it.
Is always so much fun, and I love these. And thank you again for doing this follow-up. I hope that was valuable for people. And certainly, if any more questions come up, either through you or through me,
we do it again.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much for everyone who's watching or will watch the recording of this. We welcome questions. Your questions help us learn about ourselves and our love lives. So hit us with questions through Kelly or through me, until we see each other again. And just we may do another podcast episode about step family.
That would be great. Wonderful. Okay. Take care, everyone. Thanks.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.